Welcome to Hookup Baits Fishing. Join me in sharing the stoke of catching while learning how to use the versatile and very effective hookup baits on everything that swims. Story time. I almost died. For real, I almost died. So when we got here, looked out, said, oh, totally fishable. We got a point right here, right there. And it was windy outside, it was white capping outside, but not too much right here. Said, oh, that's totally doable. Chris had to go to the bathroom, and then a guy came up and was talking to him. I launched, I took off and went straight out here. And then I seen some birds diving about a half mile out, just on the edge of where the white caps were. So I went to them. I was like in 130 feet of water. Then all of a sudden, I felt the wind kick up a little bit. 3 big swells came that were really steep. I nosed my kayak into them, went over them. And I'm like, man, I better get out of here. It's getting gnarly. And I was only out there for 10 minutes out in that big water. So right as I was turning my kayak around, another steep wave came, caught the back edge of my kayak, and just picked it up and dumped me over. Had my life jackets on, my life jacket puffed up, so that worked. But then had it on too loose, so it was like going over my head. I had a rod in my hand, so I kept a hold of that rod, and I had a rod in the side holder. When it flipped over, I felt the line with my foot, and so I wrapped the line with my foot and brought it up, and then grabbed the rod, and at the whole time hanging onto my kayak. You know, it was full on windy, white capping, hanging onto my kayak, hanging onto 2 rods, and then then I had, thank you Yak Attack, saving my phone. And I had this GoPro. I had the door off though because I had it plugged in, so that GoPro died, and I lost 2 rods. So I had 4 rods, so the 2 rods that were sitting in here came out. So sorry, Kuma, the brand new rod you just gave me, it's gone. I did catch a big yellowtail. My biggest yellowtail just tripped so far on it, so came in handy, but now it's structure. But everything stayed. Actually, the lid did come open on this, but I think for the most part everything stayed in it. It was kind of weird. Look, I had a big battery in there, and leader line, everything stayed in it. It must have opened when I flipped it over. There's no way that stuff would have stayed in it while it was upside down. But I was upside down for a good, I mean, it felt like a half hour, but it was probably 10-15 minutes trying to get it flipped back over. I was trying to flip it over, and the wind kept blowing it. I'd get it about halfway up, and then the wind blew, so I came around to the other side and couldn't get it flip. So what I had to do is jump totally on it and reach across. And first I caught my breath, and actually reeled my rods in, because one in the holder was out trolling, and then I just casted the other one, so I was going to be trolling my way back in. And so I laid on the bottom side of my kayak, reeled both my lines in, got them in my hand, both in one hand correct, so I can at least have a good grip with the other hand. Came to the back edge, reached over, grabbed the rail about right here, and then just fell off the opposite side. I was able to get it rolled back over. And then I came around to this side. I was on that side, but that knob was kind of in the way to climb in, so I went around to this side, which was, the wind was blowing how it is this way, so with the wind at my back, jumped onto there. Pedals were still in, phone was still in, fish finder was still on. The fish finder never turned off. But having this big fish finder on there, I think, was part of what made it hard to flip back over. A lot of weight down deep kind of thing. So but I got it flipped over, got back in the boat, so I was alive at least, and took a tally. I lost a small box of hookup baits, 2 rods, and my hat. So you see, no hat. So one of my USA kayaking hats. And I had it floating right next to me, but I didn't have no hand to grab it. I think that did it. I mean, hopefully my phone comes back on. It turned off. That GoPro might dry out and come back on. But other than that, it happens. I got to find out how dangerous the Sea of Cortez is. It came up really quick. It was doable here, and out there was a little sketchy when I got out there, but it was totally, it's the seas that we were in the other day all day. But then all of a sudden that wind, just as soon as I got up there, just kicked up another 5 miles an hour or so, and all of a sudden those waves just got really steep and started breaking, started white capping, and I watched it happen. I seen the wave coming, and I was trying to kind of out paddle it, kind of thing, and it just white capped right here, lifted this back corner up, and just tipped me over that way. It was just the wrong angle when that wave came, pretty much. But I'm alive. And then we went fishing still. You'll see a couple, I'll put a picture up of
and whacked them.
Yeah, a nice pargo that I caught with my puffed up jacket, or life jacket.
That was a good look.
Yeah. And then I caught a grouper, and then we continued catching pargo and grouper like that. But you know, the only camera we had was Chris's big camera, and it was too much of a pain in the butt to keep pulling that out. But I caught a 4 pargo and 3 grouper. And we caught a bunch of spotties.
Yeah, countless spotties.
Yeah, and just right there by that boat, I just caught a 15-incher. It was a good spotty.
And that first grouper was solid.
Yeah, that was a solid one. Yeah,
8-10 pound grouper.
Yeah, and all the pargo.
Those are the ones we need tomorrow.
Yeah, and the pargo were good size too.
Yeah,
they're all decent sized pargos. Oh, and trumpet fish, of course. We're getting a bunch of trumpet fish. So
no needlefish. Bit off by a few triggers.
Yeah, the triggers weren't bad at all, actually. Didn't go through much baits. But yeah, we just stayed right in the lee of this little point and just fished less than 10 feet of water all the way down there, and then paddled back up. And we got a bunch of fish right here. We didn't need to go out there. So
expect the conditions.
Yeah, and learn how to flip your kayak back over and get back in. But I knew when that wave was crashing, I felt it coming. I'm like, I'm dumping over right now.
This is gonna happen.
Yeah, I was like, help, here we go. There ain't no fighting this, you know. And I leaned all the way to the opposite side. I knew it was coming, so I fought it, but it was done. It was over. And as I was going into the water, the only thing going through my mind, do not let go of the kayak.
Yeah.
As soon as I hit the water, I just turned around, grabbed the kayak, you know.
If you get separated from the boat, you're not catching it. It's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
this is not the place to practice.
Well, I practiced in San Diego Bay on accident once before. So, but I'm pretty strong and athletic, so I knew I'd be able to get it flipped over. And when I did flip it over, I looked back and Chris was still standing here. And he probably couldn't even see me. He couldn't even see me. I was out of sight out there. So
I was trying to call you on the radio, and there was no reply.
Oh yeah, my radio was at the bottom of the ocean too.
Yeah. I just figured that the radio had not been turned on.
No, I actually turned it on.
No, you did.
But I had it sitting in my cup holder right here.
And I think it floats. Maybe if we go
to
the bottom of the bay,
go to the beach over there, you'll find it.
We'll locate it.
And my hat. Wild times. So the only bummer is I lost a brand new nice Akuma rod, and then the other rod was actually an I-rod that Ben gave me. Sorry Ben Seacrest gave me an I-rod, and that one with a Stratic 5000 on it. So at least both the rods that I lost were given to me, so that's a plus, I guess.
And no one died.
and I didn't die. Yeah, so that's today's adventure. We caught fish. It was fun catching that shallow water pargos and groupers and spotties. So tournament time tomorrow. We're gonna load up and be back in La Paz and fish the tournament tomorrow. The little fish camp, that's where bad place to launch, super easy launch. So we're able to back up to the water.
Conga ramp.
Yeah.
Dug out.
Dead
out most of the
dead
rock.
stingrays like everywhere. So, all right, catch you tomorrow. Okay, so reflecting back, now that the adrenaline rush is gone and all that stuff, is the rollover I had in the pause. So that was nothing fault of the Hobie Lynx kayak. That was absolutely my fault.
Yeah, or any kayak.
Yeah, that would have been any kayak I was in. I felt like I would have flipped right there in that situation. It was my just kind of how I live my life of just no fear, go for it. I'll be good with whatever happens my way. I'll handle it. And it was one of those situations. I launched. I was out there by myself, and you know, didn't wait for Chris. And I seen birds working, and there's already pretty bad conditions and even worse conditions outside. But that whole way I do things of just go, no fear. And I went to that outside area to see what these birds were on. Got out there. It was gnarly, and then got even a little bit more gnarly. Just not where you should be with a kayak. And I turned around and leave. The wave hit me just right on the back corner, and I think any kayak with this, you know, just digs the front nose corner in, and you know, and you go over. So
well, that particular day, I mean, it was a really short period
and super steep.
Super steep.
Yeah.
You know, and we're looking at probably 20 plus knot winds.
Yeah, it was really windy.
Yeah.
So.
And when we were on the shore or on the beach looking out, you're not always considering that condition when you're looking at the birds. You know, you're seeing a breaking fish. You just want to get out there.
Yeah.
When the conditions build, as you move out further, you're kind of still focused on that initial goal. So.
Yeah. It was 3 waves that came before I flipped. It was like sitting there fishing, and all of a sudden a steep wave, and I'm like, ooh, that sucker's gnarly, and it's breaking on top of it, and then another one. That was like 3 in a row. I'm like, yeah, if those waves hit me wrong, I'm going over. That's what made me hightail it. And then, you know, thinking back, I'm all like, man, when I went to leave that area, I should have left at a different angle, or, you know, I should have went sideways or something instead of just straight down swell. You know, you think of all these things of how to avoid the situation. And basically it was, I should have not went out there at all. That's what I should have done. And, you know, just thinking back of how much worse it could have been. You know, it was really high seas. I had the inflatable life jacket on, and I didn't have it on tight enough. So when it inflated, it was just covering my head pretty much. I couldn't really do a whole lot. And then I flipped my Hobie Pro Angler one time in San Diego Bay. It's because I was looking for something under my seat. So I leaned all the way over trying to look under my seat, and I rolled to my surprise. And so I was like, okay, I get the practice of how to turn it back over and get back in. And I on that one, I was in calm water. So I just kind of went under the rail, put my head under the water, and then had the rail and kicked really hard and pushed, and I was able to flip it back over first try. Well, when I was out there in that big water, I tried that 3 times, and I was not even getting close to flipping it over. I tried it from both sides. At first I was on the downwind side, and I was trying to push it over. I thought it was because the wind was blowing it back down, and so I went around to the other side of it, tried it 2 more times, and then, you know, and that fatigued me a lot doing that, trying to get that, you know, while having 2 rods in my hand, and that life jacket covering my head. You know, actually, when I flipped over in San Diego Bay, I didn't have a life jacket on. That's how I was able to go underwater and get a good kick and push it. With a life jacket on, I wasn't able to go underwater at all. So I was just trying to flip it, and I couldn't. And then so I knew just from watching YouTube videos and just common sense of, okay, I need to get on top of the kayak, grab the other side, and just kind of use my body weight to flip it back over. So, you know, I jumped up on the bottom of the kayak, which was fairly easy to do, actually, to get on the bottom of the kayak. And by then, you know, your adrenaline's going 100 miles an hour. Your mind is just going 1,000 miles an hour of, okay, can I save my other rods? Can I save my phone? Can I save this? You're trying to figure out how much gear you can save.
Where's my partner?
yeah, looking at the shore, and I see Chris still, I could barely see Chris from where I was on shore, and I could see that his kayak was still on shore. And so I'm like, okay, and, you know, is there any help? And that's another thing. We were so far out, there's no boats on the water, no one. So if I was not able to flip my kayak over, I would be floating for hours and probably end up, you know, 5 miles down the beach by the time I got close to shore.
It was also difficult for me to see you because of the conditions.
Yeah.
And in that rollover, you lost your VHS.
Yep.
I was trying to call you on the radio.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, well, maybe you didn't turn it on today, this morning.
Then I had it on. I had my VHS on, but I didn't have it on me. I had it sitting in the cup holder. Yeah. So, of course, it floated away when I rolled over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, learned multiple things of, you know, it can happen. Kayak fishing is pretty...
It's gonna happen.
Kayak fishing is pretty safe. These kayaks are very stable and all that stuff. I mean, it takes one wave to hit you the wrong way, or you're trying to look under your seat, or you're trying to grab a fish. You know, they are rollable. Learning what to do, keeping a calm head is the main thing. Keeping a calm head and making sure, as I knew, I heard that wave coming behind me, and I knew, like, okay, I'm gonna roll right now. First thing that went through my head is, don't let go of your kayak. You know, that's the number one. Do not let your kayak float away from you, because you will never catch it. So that went through my head, hanged onto my rod, hung onto my kayak, and I was able to catch the line on my other rod with my foot and save that rod. Because you're not ever thinking of rolling over, so you don't have all your stuff strapped down properly, you know. So, but then, yeah, getting back in the kayak, and luckily the water was warm, so there wasn't a thing of that. You know, I was in the water for, I mean, like, it felt like forever, but it was probably reality of 10-15 minutes.
Yeah. So exposure wasn't an issue here, at least in the short term, because the water's warm.
Yeah, but yeah, if I was at Pyramid Lake, yeah, I'd be hypothermia by then, you know, right?
Yeah, right.
So getting up on the kayak, composing myself, got my rods to where I can hang onto them both. One hand, I have one free hand. Now, and the first time I tried to flip the kayak over from the bottom, the only thing to grab on the bottom of the kayak was the pedal drive. So I grabbed the pedal drive and tried to pull it over, and then the breakaway fins just broke away, which I'm glad it just did that instead of broke my fins. The breakaway fins just reset. And so I'm like, all right, there's nothing to grab, and so I have to get on the kayak and grab fully the other side to pull it over. So once I got my rods in my hand, I reached back with one hand and I grabbed the back of the rail, where the rail connects to the back of the kayak, and that's what I grabbed onto.
You're talking about the H-rail.
The H-rail, yeah. Grabbed onto that, and then once I had a hold of that, I just kind of rolled myself off the opposite side of the kayak, and it came with me. Well, and where my kayak, I have that 9-inch Lowrance on there. I had a big battery, you know, two Yak Attack boxes. So there was a lot of weight on the bottom side of that. So it took a little bit to turn all that back over.
There's also not only the weight, but the resistance.
Yeah, in the water.
The volume of that crate alone.
Yeah. So yeah, it took a little bit. You know, it did it first try. Luckily, I was able to flip it over first try when I did it that way. But which is, by the way, the first time I've ever tried it that way. So it's like, that's something you might want to practice in a calm area. You know, just take your gear out and just maybe have your box and stuff, and flip your kayak over and practice turning it back over, because, you know, I'm in pretty good shape, and all that, trying to flip it back over and climb it back up and flipping it back over the right way. And I was tired. I was getting really fatigued by then. And you know, if you're not in that great a shape, I can see it not happening. And
that's maybe something too, is the alternative is if you weren't able to get it out, if you were close enough, could you swim it to shore? Could you kick? You know, what other method would you actually use if you didn't have a partner? I mean, we fish by ourselves all the time. I'm always fishing solo.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess also maybe try to practice swimming your boat to shore. You know, that we had an onshore wind that day you flipped, luckily, so at some point you would have come back in
it was kind of going along
beach.
the shore but angling to the shore. Yeah, eventually it would have ended up on the beach somewhere, but
it may have been 45 minutes or an hour.
It would have been at least an hour longer. So yeah, practice, especially if you're not in that great a shape. See if you can flip your kayak over, see if you can get back in it. Getting back in it, I just crawled in right in the cockpit, right side of it, right in the middle side. I didn't try to come up the back or anything. I was like, oh, this is the clearest area of the kayak right here, and jumped right in there, like no problem. I was able to jump right in there. Random goat sitting right there. And so that getting back in the kayak once it was flipped was easy. It's the flipping over part that was hard. But
I mean, there's also the issue of entanglement. You know.
Yeah, I did have 2 lines out when I got, and I did, you know, luckily I had that one line. I had saved 1 rod by having lines out, but I did feel them tangling around me. That was part of the struggle, was, you know, keeping the lines all from tangling around my legs while I was kicking and
then if
stuff.
you have leashes on things like your pliers or your paddle or your lip gripper or something, those are all more things that could potentially
on you,
get tangled in.
Yeah, so it was, you know, and then being out yesterday, fishing out there, when you get beyond the island, I seriously have PTSD, which I've never, like, usually go out kayaking and have a fear of flipping. I felt yesterday multiple times, like, here we go again, I'm gonna flip again. I mean, it definitely gave me a little bit of PTSD. That's how I know it scared me a little bit. You know, it's and I don't get scared of many things. So you know, just reflecting back on how bad it could get out there. So just prepare. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't set up for it, you know, and make good calls. I mean, now I know. It is all about just going out to where I shouldn't have been out. That's basically what it comes down to. But
assess the conditions, know your limits.
Yep.
And then make a decision whether you should go or not.
Yep. Yeah. But it did cost me 2 brand new rods. It cost me my phone. I went this whole trip without a phone, which is kind of nice but weird in a way. Going a week and a half without no phone.
Yeah. Well, not only that, just not being from a contact perspective, we didn't have the navionics then after that.
Yeah, my phone had all the stuff on it. Chris's phone is a little old, so it don't have the updated navionics, don't have the updated Google Maps, and Mag Bay would have been very helpful to have a really detailed updated map.
Not only for information, but for location. I mean, it's a maze of mangroves in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Very easy to get turned around and kind of disoriented.
Yeah, so I mean, there was a lot of my phone going away kind of screwed some things up on this trip. I think we would have caught more fish and been in better areas if I had my phone still through this trip.
We would have been a little more effective.
Yeah. But, you know, and then plus it made it easier to get pictures. We probably didn't take pictures of quite a few fish because, you know, taking the big camera out, and, you know, we only did it when it was a really cool fish or a big fish or something.
Or it was calm enough to get the SLR out of the dry box.
So yeah, we couldn't get as much footage. You know, so that was a huge thing that kind of happened, and then, you know, and then now just down to 1 GoPro. I had 2, but just down to 1. The GoPro, I had the door off because I had it plugged in, you know, to do the hindsight videos and stuff. So, and then my battery ended up screwing up. I guess my fish finder was still on when I flipped my kayak over. So the battery was still working, and then it worked the next day. It was when I went to recharge it that it went all goofy, and
might have shorted out.
it just by being shorted by the water, I think, for 15 minutes, you know, being underwater and being shorted by water, made the lithium battery just go wacky.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't recharge and stuff. So then down a fish finder. So.
Yeah.
But my fish finder survived. I got to give props to Lawrence.
Yeah, no doubt.
that thing it has not flawed at all, you know, other than the battery. But the fish finder itself still works perfectly. So that's the only electronic on the whole boat that survived.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's bottom line, great lesson learned.
Yes. Yeah, lesson learned. You know, especially if you're a hardcore kayaker, you're going to be doing even the lakes. I've seen Pyramid Lake get the same kind of conditions that I was in there, and it can just come up, and it just takes a wave hitting you at the wrong angle, and you're going to be over. You know, you're going to be flipped over. But having a calm head, knowing to hang onto your kayak, and knowing how to flip it back over and get back in could save your life. You know, definitely. So make sure you figure those things out before you get into any big water.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson learned, basically.
If you spend enough time on the boat, you're gonna have your turn is gonna come.
Yeah. So yeah, this is 10 years of kayaking, and this is my second flip over. So, and you know, I kayak in relatively safe areas, bays and trout lakes and stuff like that. That's where I do most of my kayaking. I don't do a whole lot of, you know, saltwater, open water kayaking.
Ocean.
Yeah, open ocean.
Yeah, yesterday we were 18 miles off the beach.
Yeah, we were out behind an island, 20 miles offshore. You know, so, but it's all the same. Just be prepared. That's all. That's all I wanted to, you know, help you guys maybe save a life down the road, or just make somebody's life easier. You know, if they do get out there and roll over. So. Just living through my life experience of having that thing happen, the rollover happen, and sharing it with you guys, and hopefully it helps you out.
It's something to consider.
Yeah, something to consider, because, you know, I'm one of the guys, I just go and do it and handle it, whatever comes my way, and it would have been much better off if I prepared first. So, all right, hope that helps, guys. And still got another day fishing, so here we go.